Welcome back. Welcome. Craig Peterson here, online and on WGAN and many other radio stations too during the week. Thanks for joining me. Lawmakers have long been accused of being corrupt, and I'm not going to defend them, that's for sure. But this is a different type of corruption that a lot of people really haven't thought a lot about. There's been a lot in the news about Joe Biden's son, Hunter, getting money from the Ukraine. Joe Biden's brother getting, $15 million from the Ukraine is the latest story that I saw out there, some of the allegations. We've seen also Nancy Pelosi's son-in-law getting money from the Ukraine, John Kerry's relative getting money from the Ukraine, right? So you do hear a lot about alleged corruption. And you have to wonder, frankly, how do these Congress critters go down to Washington, D.C., nary a penny in their pocket, and end up multimillionaires? It's absolutely nuts, isn't it? And of course, they exempt themselves from certain laws that we have to live by. For instance, insider trading rules. So if you're a congressman and your committee's hearing bills, you're going to add regulations here or there, or you're going to mandate some action by businesses. It is perfectly legal for you to go out and invest in companies that are going to take care of this problem and charge businesses a lot of money, right? And so now all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire. If you or I were to have that, we would be nailed for insider trading. So it's long been a double standard. But here's another side of that double standard that's bothered me for a very long time. And this isn't just businesses. This includes unions. And this is where a business or a union wants to get rid of competition. And what they'll do is they'll get a Congress critter to sponsor a bill that, let's say, it requires a licensing for something. Like most states have licensing for barbers. Are you kidding me? What does a barber need to know? Well, obviously, you don't know how to haircut, but you know what? A state-sponsored haircut, what does that look like? Something out of the Soviet Union? Well, they have to know how to clean the instruments and clean them properly. They don't use autoclaves, but they do use alcohol and various other things to clean them. So what does that take? A 5-minute quiz on it? So if you want to keep barbers out, you can put together a nice little barbers association that goes to the state capitol and says, hey guys, I think for the health and safety of our citizens in the state, we've got to have rules and regulations surrounding barbers. And you get it passed, and now all of a sudden you get to control how many barbers there are. And in some states, they actually have a number of people who are allowed to have licenses. Look at taxi medallions in the big cities, like New York City is an example. And in New York City, there's only so many of them, and they were valued at like $1.5 million a piece. It's just crazy money, and people sunk their life savings into them. And then, of course, the bottom fell out of the whole medallion taxi market when Uber showed up, and of course, some of these other ride-hailing services. So we've known for a long time that both unions and businesses use the federal government in order to squeeze out competition. And I don't think there's any real debate about that. It absolutely happens. It happens all of the time. The left does it. The right does it. They all do it to us. Well, this last Friday, there was a hearing, and there were executives from 4 different businesses that pleaded with federal lawmakers to rein in Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon. This is a New York Times article. And this was a congressional hearing that was in Boulder, Colorado. They had some smaller companies. Now, these companies are actually pretty big in their market segments, but much, much smaller than Google, Facebook, Apple, or Amazon. We're talking about Sonos, PopSockets, Basecamp, and Tile. Now, I have used equipment. I've had people from all of those companies on my radio show before. And those top executives testified that the biggest technology companies blocked their businesses. They stopped them from growing. And according to the New York Times, their stories varied, but they shared a theme. The tech giants have used their powerful positions in search, e-commerce, online ads, and smartphones to squeeze them out, as well as other rivals. Now, when we get down to this, I think it also boils down to the antitrust laws that we have. The whole idea was, well, we're not going to let companies get too big. We're not going to let them get too horizontal. We're going to help make sure they stay in an industry, make sure there's competition. But we say that on one hand, the federal government does, right? But then on the other hand, they don't do it at all. So let's take a great example, General Motors and what happened at GM. When a company gets to a certain size, the government decides that it is too big to fail. So our lawmakers look at it and say, oh my gosh, how many voters work at that company? So instead of letting the market take care of the problem, and these, by the way, most of these people probably ultimately would have had jobs, probably better jobs, probably higher paying jobs. But instead of letting the market take care of it and split up GM, keep the profitable divisions alive, maybe let GM continue to operate them and sell off the unprofitable divisions or let them die off, which is the way the markets work, right? It's the fittest, survival of the fittest, if you will. And that does well for everybody because now you have a stronger company that's doing better. While we're in the car industry, look at what happened with Chrysler. Twice. They've been bailed out by the taxpayers. So why didn't the antitrust laws work in those cases? Right? Obviously, they didn't work. And we've got examples here in New England. Look at Seabrook and what's happened there and with the oh man, and the costs that have been incurred by the ratepayers, but because of this whole debacle. So what's happening now is these big guys like Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon are capitalizing on the strength that they have because of their size and because of the government regulations, and using it as a weapon against the smaller startups. And this happens every time. As I said, this is a left issue, it's a right issue, it's unions, it's big business. But these are the guys we're talking about right now because that's what happened just this week in a federal hearing. So you now have these big companies that we just don't let markets really deal with anymore. Do you really think that the government would allow Google to go under? Now, none of these companies, to the best of my knowledge, are having cash flow issues right now. Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon. So they're probably not likely to go under. But these smaller guys, Sonos, PopSockets, I know Basecamp has had some issues. They've had products that they've had to let go because they weren't profitable enough, right? Does it sound like what GM should have done? Tile. Those guys, who knows, right? But there is not the competition there needs to be out there. How do you compete with Google? Now, there are some out there. I use DuckDuckGo instead of Google because DuckDuckGo does not track me. It does not sell my information. It is a pretty darn safe place to go. Apple I use because they do not make money off of selling my information. They make money off of selling me hardware and software and services, right? So Apple now, according to Tile, has put up hurdles for their smartphone app that didn't apply to Apple's competing product. Sonos, a high-end audio company, said Google copied its patent speaker technology and used its dominance in search to enter new markets. PopSockets, which makes smartphone grips, said Amazon bullied it into sales agreements and ignored complaints about counterfeits on the Amazon retail platform. This goes on and on. Bullying with a smile. And frankly, as I think I pointed out pretty clearly, I think Congress is part of this problem, not necessarily part of the solution. So what are we going to do about it? Let me know what you think. Me at craigpeterson.com. Just drop me an email, me at craigpeterson.com. And you're listening to me, M-E, at WGAN.